Find a comfortable position. Let your body settle without hurry. There is nothing you need to hold upright now. Nothing you need to keep carrying from one part of the afternoon into the next. Today's story is called A 20-Minute Nap Beneath a Garden Pergola. The shade is already waiting for you. It lies beneath the pergola in a soft, broken pattern, held there by timber beams overhead, and the slow crossing of climbing leaves that have spent the whole afternoon filtering sunlight into gentler shapes. Beyond the structure, the garden is still warm with day. But here, under the pergola, the light has already changed its nature. It no longer falls in one broad, uninterrupted brightness. It arrives in pieces. A pale patch on the bench, a softer warmth across one knee, a shifting leaf shadow over the boards or stone below. The whole place feels held between summer sun and shade in exactly the right proportion for the body to stop moving. The bench beneath the pergola is long enough to receive you without asking you to arrange yourself carefully. Perhaps it is a cushioned garden bench set against one side of the structure. Perhaps it is a narrow dabe built into the space beneath the beams, with a quilt or padded cover spread over it, and a cushion at one end already softened by many afternoons of use. Whatever form it takes, it has the same quality at once: support first, comfort second, and no demand to do anything more than settle. You lower yourself onto it, and the seat receives you immediately. The cushion yields more in the middle than at the edges, where earlier bodies must have rested and leaned and let the fabric and filling learn their shape. The back of one leg meets the seat first, then the other. The hips settle next. A hand may come to rest on the timber arm or edge, finding the wood warm where the day has touched it longest, and cooler underneath, where the shade has held more of the morning. Nothing about it feels newly prepared. It feels used in the best way, trusted enough not to need attention called to it. One of the pergola posts stands close by. Its grain shows through whatever finish it once had more strongly at hand height, where fingers have often found it while someone sat down, turned slightly, or simply let a hand rest there through the slower middle of the day. The timber is not polished smooth everywhere. It is weathered into honesty. One side is warmed by sun where it reaches beyond the vines. The side turned inward keeps the cooler touch of shade. Even that difference helps the body understand where it is. One side open to afternoon brightness, the other held beneath leaves and beams. Overhead, the climbing plants stretch from one crosspiece to another. Their stems are anchored in the structure now, no longer loose enough to move much. The leaves nearest the top catch the full sun and turn brighter where the light passes through them. The lower leaves, those nearest your line of sight, keep a calmer green and cast gentler shadows down through the pergola. Nothing overhead moves quickly. Now and then a leaf stirs. A thinner stem shifts a fraction and changes the shape of one patch of light. But the pattern always settles again, and always more slowly than it began. You understand almost at once that this is not open garden, but sheltered garden. That matters. Outside the pergola, the afternoon still spreads across paths and flower beds and stone. But beneath the beams, the air has been altered by shade. It is not cool in any pronounced way, not cold, only softer. The warmth no longer lies equally over everything. It gathers at the edges instead, where one foot reaches beyond the shade line, where a sleeve rests near a patch of sunlight, where the side of the bench catches a little lingering heat from the day. Under the pergola itself, the air feels quieter and more held. You shift once, only enough to let the seat take more of you. A shoulder turns a little toward the back or cushion. A knee eases into a position it will not need to leave soon. One hand comes to rest in your lap, or against the bench beside you, or lightly against the timber post. None of these choices needs to be exact. The pergola has already done much of the work. The beams above define the space. The bench beneath defines the posture. The climbing leaves reduce the afternoon to something patterned, slower, easier for the body to remain inside. The garden beyond the pergola is already at the right distance. You do not need to go out into it. You do not need to follow it with your eyes. It remains where it is: brightness beyond shade, color beyond structure, warmth beyond the held air beneath the beams. Perhaps there is a path running pale between beds further off. Perhaps stone warmed through the day still gives back a little light. Perhaps one part of the garden wall is brighter than another. None of it matters as much as the bench beneath you and the leaf shadow overhead. The pergola has taken the broad afternoon and reduced it into something the body can rest under without effort. The first settling happens quietly. Your weight goes a little deeper into the seat. The shoulders lose some of the shape they kept for standing and walking. The hands stop belonging to motion and begin belonging to rest. You no longer feel placed under the pergola by decision. You begin to feel received there. The light reaches you in smaller, more precise ways than open sunlight ever could. A patch across the lap, a warmer edge along one forearm, a brief pale shape across the cushion near your knee before the leaves overhead turn slightly and alter it. The shade itself is not one thing either. It is layered. The deeper shade directly beneath the beams. The lighter shade where the leaves thin out and let more of the sun through. The intermittent leaf shadow that drifts across fabric and skin and timber and then stills again. These changes are enough to keep the senses gently occupied, but not enough to wake them further. The bench tells the truth about itself the longer you remain on it. The cushion is softer where bodies lean most often. The front edge is firmer. A seam beneath one hand has flattened through repeated afternoons of use. If the bench is timber rather than cushioned, then the wood itself has a different kind of honesty. Warmed where the light reaches, smoother at the edge where hands have often found it, a little more forgiving where a folded quilt or throw has been laid across it and taken the harder line away from the body. Either way, the support feels earned rather than arranged. That is part of what makes it premium. Not decoration, not abundance, only truthful support in the exact places where the body needs it. The garden remains beyond the pergola in softened fragments. A pale path, a blur of leaf, a warm section of stone or wall. Perhaps the faintest movement of flowers beyond the posts where the sun still lies more fully. But the structure matters more than the scenery now. The posts divide the garden into pieces. The overhead beams gather it under a pattern. The leaves make the whole visible world slower than it would be in the open. You are no longer in the garden at large. You are in this one sheltered recess inside it. A breath passes, then another. The pergola receives them by changing their scale. Breath does not disappear into open air here. It remains within the body's own held space, within shade, within stillness, within a place that has edges and support and no demand to move on. One hand may remain on the timber beside you. Its surface is warmer at the top than underneath. The grain is slightly raised in one place, smoother in another where weather and use have pressed it flatter over time. If your fingers rest there long enough, they stop noticing the texture as detail and begin to register it only as presence. Timber close by, structure close by, the pergola near enough that you do not feel uncontained beneath the afternoon. The same happens overhead. At first, the leaves and beams are distinct. Then the pattern becomes familiar. Then you stop reading it actively. The filtered light continues to shift, but now its movement reaches the skin more than the eyes. A patch on your lap softens. A warmer edge passes across one sleeve and then leaves it again. The brightness on the bench at your side narrows, then broadens. The changes remain too gentle to ask for attention. Felt through the body rather than examined by it, they become part of the nap logic. You lean a little more fully into the support behind you. not because you have decided to sleep, only because you have understood that you no longer need to remain upright in the same way. The back finds more of the cushion or seat, the shoulders lower, the knees grow heavier. The head begins, almost without permission, to understand where it might rest more completely later. The pergola does not need to persuade you. It only needs to keep doing what it is already doing, holding shade overhead, holding the bench beneath, holding the afternoon at one remove. The air under the pergola feels different from the air beyond it. Not cooler by much, only steadier. Outside the structure, warmth still lies more openly over stone, leaves, and paths. Under the pergola, the warmth gathers differently. It stays where sunlight reaches the body directly. It lingers in the timber that has stored some of the day. It settles in the cushion beneath you where your own stillness has begun to add to it. Between these small held pockets, the shaded air rests lightly over skin and fabric and keeps everything from tipping too far toward heat or exposure. That balance is part of the restfulness. If you were out on the path, you would still belong partly to brightness and movement. Here, beneath beams and leaves, you belong to pattern and support. The wider garden remains just visible enough to reassure. A brighter openness beyond the posts. A little color too far away to matter specifically. Perhaps the faintest drifting of bees somewhere beyond the pergola's boundary, not near enough to circle you, only distant enough to become part of the afternoon's lower texture. Perhaps a fountain or water basin much further off, heard only as the faintest softened note beneath everything else. These things are useful only because they remain beyond the structure. They confirm that the day continues. They do not ask you to re-enter it. The bench receives more of your weight now than it did at first. What had begun as sitting becomes something quieter than sitting. The support beneath the back and hips is no longer newly noticed. It has become the body's default condition. One hand may have slipped lower into the lap. The other may still rest against the timber beside you. Either way, the hands no longer seem ready for action. They have stopped belonging to the next thing and started belonging to stillness. The leaf shadow overhead matters less as pattern and more as atmosphere now. It drifts faintly, it steadies, it softens the brightness. That is all. No one leaf needs to be seen. No flower beyond the pergola needs to be named. The structure has already done enough to reduce the world to what matters. Bench, timber, filtered light, held air, the body receiving more and more support. Your eyes may still rest outward for a moment. If they do, they do not travel far. They rest on the nearest pergola post, on the line of one beam above, on the softened brightness beyond, perhaps on a path or a low wall outside the shade. But even then, the frame matters more than the garden. The post is more immediate than the flower bed. The bench edge is more immediate than the path. You belong under the pergola now, not beyond it. A little more of your weight gives way. The hips sink. The shoulders soften. The head leans another fraction toward cushion, post, or back support. You are not asleep. You have simply stopped maintaining your earlier arrangement. That is the real narrative of the nap story. Not garden, not flowers, not even shade in itself. Support, reduction. No longer carrying yourself in the old way. This is where the pergola begins doing almost all the work. It holds the leaves overhead. It holds the filtered light in place. It keeps the garden at the right distance. It gives you enough structure that rest no longer feels provisional. One tiny adjustment may still happen. A knee settling more deeply, a shoulder lowering, the side of the head resting a little more fully into whatever is nearest and soft enough to receive it. After that, there is very little left to improve. The garden beyond the pergola grows less distinct, not darker, only less important. The brightness remains out there, but it is no longer the kind of brightness you want to move into. It has become simply the outer edge of the afternoon, while the shaded interior under the beams has become the true resting place. What lies beyond the posts continues as path, leaf, stone, flower, or wall. What lies within them is bench, support, leaf shadow, warm edge, stillness. A breath passes more slowly now, then another. The bench receives both. The shade receives both. You no longer lean toward the story as though listening for what comes next. You lean into the support behind the shoulders, into the weight beneath the hips, into the warmth caught at the edge of one sleeve or knee, into the fact that nothing else needs to happen. The pergola has reduced the world very well. No larger garden remains in active detail. No broad scene, no list of flowers, only the parts directly involved in letting you drift. The bench beneath, the timber near the hand, the overhead leaves, the softened brightness beyond, the body growing heavier within all of it. That is enough. And because it is enough, the nap state becomes believable without effort. The outside is almost irrelevant now. It continues, yes, but only in the smallest permitted ways. A pale wash beyond the posts, a little movement in leaves too far away to matter directly. Perhaps one warmer patch of stone or path beyond the edge of shade. Nothing more distinct than that. Even the filtered light on your lap is no longer something to notice as light. It has become simply the gentler warmth held at the edge of shade, the place where stillness and afternoon have remained together long enough to stop feeling separate. The bench does not need to be soft everywhere, only where you line. The pergola does not need to be seen in full, only near enough to keep you from feeling open to the whole garden. The garden does not need to offer beauty in any active sense, only enough distance and brightness beyond the posts to let the structure feel complete. Nothing more is needed than this: a hand at rest, knees warmer at one edge than the other, shoulders lowered, head leaning, breath quieter than before. There is nothing else required for the pergola to become a nap place. If the eyes are still open, they do not hold much now. The line of one beam, the post beside you, the softened brightness beyond. Perhaps the slow shadow of a leaf moving across the bench and leaving it again. If the eyes close, the same things remain in another form: shade overhead, support at the back, warmth at the lap, timber nearby, the quiet certainty of the bench beneath you. The story does not need to expand. It needs only to remain here long enough for you to stop dividing yourself between shade and garden, between sitting and drifting, between afternoon and rest. That has almost happened already. The side of your head finds its resting place more fully now. The neck eases into it. The back settles another quiet fraction into the cushion or bench. The hands do not move. And under the pergola, with the beams overhead keeping the afternoon in a gentler pattern, and the body held in one shaded place, wakefulness has grown, so light that very little remains of it beyond the soft knowledge of being here. Nothing more is needed. The bench remains beneath you. The support remains at your back. The filtered warmth remains where the light has been falling longest. The pergola keeps the garden just distant enough. The world beyond the posts no longer asks to be followed. The overhead vines have become only the soft roof of shade. The post beside you has become only the near shape at the edge of the body's field. The brightness beyond the pergola has become only the outer afternoon you no longer belong to. What remains nearest is smaller than all of that: the cushion or bench beneath you, the support at the shoulder, the weight of your own hands, the held warmth across your lap, the quiet behind closed lids or at the edge of sight, the slow rise and fall of breath, and after that, less and less to notice. The pergola does not need to announce itself anymore. It has already proved itself. The shade no longer changes in any way that matters. If a leaf shifts overhead, it shifts too softly to disturb you. If brightness alters beyond the posts, it does so without asking the eyes to rise and follow. The garden keeps on with its own afternoon, but here beneath the pergola, you have stopped needing any share in it. The bench receives what remains. The timber keeps the space in place. The patterned shade holds the stillness over you. A breath passes, then another. The warmth at the lap remains. The hands stay where they rest. The head leans fully now. Nothing interrupts. Nothing enters. Nothing asks for one more adjustment, one more look beyond the posts, one more thought before drifting. Only the bench beneath you, the shaded air, the gentle edge of afternoon warmth, no longer carrying yourself in the old way. Then even those distinctions begin to soften, until there is almost nothing left but the feeling of being quietly sheltered beneath leaves and timber in one shaded afternoon place.